Why has the conflict between Israel and Palestine lasted for so long? Is it really just a modern issue, or does it have deeper biblical roots? To understand the centuries-old struggle, we must go back to where it all began. Right in the pages of the Bible, this isn't just a story about modern politics, but about ancient rivalries, divine promises, and nations torn apart by conflict. Stick around as we dive into the rich, complex, and sometimes tragic history of Israel and Palestine as revealed in the scriptures. To truly grasp the Israel-Palestine relationship, we need to start with the patriarch Abraham. In Genesis 12, 1-3, God promises Abraham that his descendants will inherit the land of Canaan. He says, "To your offspring I will give this land." Canaan, the region that encompasses modern-day Israel and Palestine, was a land of promise, but also a land of conflict. This is where the seeds of tension were first planted. But here's where things start to get interesting. Abraham has two sons, Isaac, born to Sarah, and Ishmael, born to Hagar. Isaac would go on to become the father of Jacob, who would be renamed Israel. Ishmael, on the other hand, is considered the ancestor of many Arab nations. Genesis 16:11-12 describes Ishmael as a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand against him, and he will live in hostility toward all his brothers. Could this be the first sign of the division between the descendants of these two brothers? Fast forward to Isaac's descendants, and we find Jacob, whose 12 sons form the 12 tribes of Israel. As for Ishmael's descendants, they would grow into great nations as well, spread across the deserts and what would eventually become the broader Arab world. These are the origins of the peoples who today identify as Israelis and Palestinians, with both tracing their lineage back to Abraham, yet through different sons. Now let's shift our focus to the Philistines, who many scholars link to the origins of the Palestinians. The Bible frequently mentions the Philistines as one of Israel's fiercest enemies. They settled in the coastal regions of Canaan, in areas like Gaza, Ashkelon, and Gath. In 1 Samuel 17, we see the epic showdown between the Israelite shepherd boy David and the Philistine giant Goliath. The Bible says, "The Philistine came closer to David, and David ran quickly toward the battle line to meet him." David triumphed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone. 1 Samuel 17:48-50. This conflict represents the deep-seated tension between these neighboring peoples. The Philistines, a warrior people, constantly threatened Israel's survival. From the story of Samson fighting the Philistines, Judges 16, to the ongoing battles during King Saul's reign, these rivalries set the stage for centuries of conflict. In fact, the city of Gaza, so often in the news today, was one of the 5 major Philistine cities mentioned in the Bible. But the biggest source of tension between Israel and her neighbors, both then and now, is the land itself. God's covenant with Israel included a specific promise. "I will give to you and to your offspring the land of your sojournings, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession, and I will be their God." Genesis 17:8. But Israel's occupation of the land was never uncontested. After their exodus from Egypt and entry into the Promised Land, the Israelites faced constant opposition from the peoples around them. The land was sacred not only to the Israelites, but also to the other inhabitants, including the Philistines and later, various Arab peoples. Jerusalem, in particular, became a flashpoint for conflict, even after King David established it as Israel's capital. In 2 Samuel 5:7 we read, "Nevertheless, David captured the fortress of Zion, which is the city of David." This marked the beginning of Israelite control over Jerusalem, a city that would continue to be hotly contested. As we move through the prophetic books of the Bible, we see visions of peace and restoration, but also warnings of ongoing strife. In Zechariah 12:3, God warns, "On that day when all the nations of the earth are gathered against her, I will make Jerusalem an immovable rock for all the nations. All who try to move it will injure themselves." This prophecy is chillingly relevant even today, as Jerusalem remains a focal point of both religious devotion and political tension. By the time of the New Testament, the land is under Roman rule, and tensions have only increased. Jesus himself walked through cities like Jerusalem and Gaza, places steeped in ancient conflict. Yet in Luke 19:41, Jesus weeps over the city, saying, "If you, even you, had only known on this day what would bring you peace, but now it is hidden from your eyes. This shows that even then, the people of the region were struggling for peace, just as they are today. And now let's fast forward to May 14th, 1948, one of the most pivotal moments in modern history. After nearly 2,000 years of exile, the State of Israel was officially reborn. The declaration of the establishment of the State of Israel marked the fulfillment of many biblical prophecies regarding Israel's return to the land. Isaiah 66:8 speaks to this moment when it says, "Can a country be born in a day, or a nation be brought forth in a moment? Yet no sooner is Zion in labor than she gives birth to her children." This verse resonates with the miraculous re-establishment of Israel. But with this newfound independence came immediate conflict. The surrounding Arab nations, including Palestinians, rejected the establishment of Israel, leading to the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. Just as in biblical times, the struggle for the land continued, with both Israelis and Palestinians claiming it as their ancestral home. The war displaced hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, creating the refugee crisis that still exists today, and deepening the divide between the two peoples. So, what can we learn from this ancient history as we look at the modern-day conflict between Israelis and Palestinians? Both peoples have deep historical ties to the land, and their struggles go back thousands of years. The Bible not only highlights their ancient rivalries, but also points to a future where peace is possible, though the path is fraught with difficulty. The Israel-Palestine conflict isn't just about modern borders or political disputes. It's part of a long and complicated history that stretches all the way back to the Bible. Understanding this biblical backdrop is essential for grasping why the region remains so contested today. But with that understanding comes hope, because the Bible also speaks of a future time when swords will be beaten into plowshares and peace will finally reign. Until then, the ancient and modern struggles continue.